Hi, I'm in the Sonoran Desert near Wickenburg, Arizona, and this is the site of an old prospect pit that I believe that miners were probably looking for gold in this area. But there are some other interesting minerals to take a look at. In fact, laying around the ground here are lots of rocks, obviously, but there's also some quartz and some calcite scattered around here. So we're going to go in and take a closer look and use the basic physical property of cleavage to help us distinguish between the calcite and the quartz. All right, here's a couple of rocks here, and looking at this one, it's light colored, a little bit of brown staining here, probably from some iron, some crystal faces here, but this one is probably quartz. We'll hit it with a hammer here and find out in a minute whether or not it is. Here's a couple more rocks that are in the rubble here, and looking at this one could be calcite. So as I was saying, the way you test for calcite is cleavage. That's one of the easier ways to test it. Because there's just tons of this stuff laying out here, I'm going to take this one here and break it a few times to see if it produces any kind of a cleavage. But let's come in for a little closer look here. Okay. Nice flat surface. Lots of incipient cleavage planes here. Let me bust it a few more times. Wow, that broke pretty good that time. Here you can see a nice rhombohedral type of cleavage. This is definitely calcite. Of course, we would probably test the hardness as well, maybe even a little hydrochloric acid test on that one. Here's this other chunk of rock right here that I was suggesting was quartz. Let's give this a hit. It breaks, but with a very irregular type of fracture. Definitely not a cleavage. And bust it one more time here. All right. So this is a rock quartz that has no cleavage, but it has a fracture. Let's see if we can't find one more here. Here's a good one. Well, this one already has flat surface here and a flat surface there. That's a cleavage fragment right there. Let me hit this again. And I can see lots of shiny faces on there. Bust it a few more times. The way it breaks, very blocky, right? Rhombohedral type of cleavage. So this is more calcite, and the hill here really is loaded with calcite. So we'll collect some for ASU for students to bust it into millions of little pieces. I managed to come back with a bunch of ugly rocks, a bunch of calcite fragments from that prospect pit out near Wickenburg. And most of it's going to go to Arizona State University at the West Campus for students to bust up into little pieces to explore the concept of cleavage in minerals. But the three specimens I have here I'm going to break up, but I wanted to show you this one first. This is the one that has the overall shape of a calcite cleavage rhomb to begin with. Now, this is a specimen that was sitting out there in the desert for a lot of years. I did a little bit of research on that prospect pit, and it was dug in the 1960s. So it's probably somewhere around 45 years old. So after 45 years of sitting out in the desert, this has weathered significantly. So you can see on the surface here, there are some lines running in that direction that are parallel to that cleavage surface, and also some lines that are running off in this direction that are parallel to the other cleavage direction, right, as well as in that side. So this is an indication that there are definite zones of weakness within the crystal structure, and even the process of weathering can find those zones of weakness and attack the mineral more easily along that direction as well. The concept of chemical weathering is a different topic. Here we're going to be talking about the cleavage. So I'm going to set this one aside and take a look at this one. All right, this is a pretty irregular piece, except for this apparently flat surface here, that's flat surface on that side, and even a little bit over here. And as I was going through the rubble looking at it, I said, well, this is a calcite piece, right, based on that flat surface. So what I'm going to do here is bust this one to demonstrate that it is indeed calcite. I did a few good wraps there. I did finely cleaved. And you can see that it does produce really nice flat surfaces. All right, so that is a good example of cleavage. In fact, here's a corner here representing that rhombohedral crystal face. And also, I'm going to continue busting this one, seeing that it's already broken apart. Okay, more and more flat, shiny faces. And the concept of cleavage is, of course, that these faces repeat themselves. They're guided by the atomic structure. So we can go smaller and smaller and smaller. In fact, we're going to zoom in on some of this material right here so you can see the consistency of the cleavage angles. All right, here's a bunch of that calcite cleavage. And you can see as I kind of move my hand over some of this material here, how there are lots of shiny faces that are present here. Now, even the smallest pieces there, the dust that's down inside between some of those pieces, is also going to represent the same cleavage angles. So if we had a microscope and took a look at some of that material, you would see the same cleavage faces. This is a close-up view of some of those fragments. It's about as close as I can get with this camera, but you can see the consistency of angles for even these tiniest cleavage fragments.